On our second wedding anniversary, I waited all day at home for Annie. Just before midnight, she came back with another man. When she saw me, she didn't hold back and said in a cold tone, "Fix your face, this is what you deserve. If you can't stand it, get out of the house." She was so sure I couldn't leave her. Later, in an attempt to keep me, she almost lost her life. Watching Annie pleading for me not to leave, even when she was so close to death, I looked away and only said, "This is what you deserve." As the clock ticked towards midnight, we were just 1 minute away from our second wedding anniversary coming to a messy close. The food on the table had long gone cold. The fish soup congealed, giving off a cold fishy smell. The cake's frosting had melted, pooling in a sad mess. I sat on the couch, dialing Annie's number for the 26th time tonight. There was a rustle at the door. The warm yellow light from the foyer outlined two figures, tall and small, entwined in an intimate way. Someone was with her. I guess my expression wasn't too pleasant, or the handsome guy pinned beneath Annie wouldn't have looked so freaked out. Annie paused, slowly getting up and turning to face me. The chandelier overhead, supposedly custom-made by an Italian master, lit up the room like daytime, revealing the flicker of disgust on Annie's face. Neither of us said a word. It was the handsome stranger who broke the silence first. He casually tucked a strand of hair behind his ear and said, "Sorry." Annie wasn't in the best mood and had a bit too much to drink at a gathering. "I've brought her back, and now I should leave." "I didn't say you could leave." Annie's expression darkened as she grabbed his hand and tried to pull him inside. "Annie," I called out to her. The tall figure froze for a moment, then slowly turned back with the softness of an animation frame. "What do you want?" She smirked. "Here to cheer us on? Or join in?" It took me a couple of seconds to process her words, and the surge of shame engulfed me. My face burned with embarrassment. Annie frowned at me, her voice rough. "Put away that almost crying face. Can't stand it? Then get out of this house. Don't forget. You owe me. This is what you deserve." Annie's voice was always so pleasant. Back when I couldn't sleep, I loved having her read or sing to me, or even just chat aimlessly until I drifted off. Who would have thought she'd one day utter such heartless words? The guest room door had somehow opened a crack. Standing behind it, Mike's eyes were clear as he calmly asked, "What's going on?" Annie almost fled from the house. Of course, she wouldn't want Mike to see her at her worst. When Mike returned from abroad, Annie insisted on hosting a dinner for him. The welcome dinner was held at a hotel owned by the group, with a crowd of well-known figures attending. What's so special about him that Annie is making such a fuss? While the main flag stands strong at home, Annie still manages to juggle two men without issue. Yeah, right. Before today, have any of you seen Annie's husband? I think the title is about to change hands. Standing at the corner of the corridor, I silently listened to a few women gossiping. Suddenly, it got quiet outside, followed by a bit of fearful flattery, calling out Annie's name. A tall, elegant figure brushed past my shoulder. Annie was stone-faced as she unflinchingly instructed her assistant to kick those women out. Amidst their pleas, she looked at me with an unperturbed gaze. "What are you doing here?" If her assistant wasn't blocking someone right then, I'd bet it'd be me getting thrown out. I asked him to come. Mike showed up on time, putting an arm around my shoulder. "Calvin, let's go." "Ignore her. She's crazy." After that scene in the hallway, everyone was silent. Even if they were curious about the dynamics between the three of us, no one dared to ask. But when Annie mentioned Mike would be joining Shunshire Industries, some couldn't help but sneak glances my way. Everyone knew Shunshire Industries was Annie's own creation. The fact that she placed him there spoke volumes about her regard for him. Mike wasn't interested. He snorted and said to Annie, "Can you treat Calvin better?" Even with my head down, I could feel Annie's icy stare piercing into me. At the end of the dinner, Mike had drunk too much. He cried a mess, slurring, "Calvin, we have to be okay. Calvin, I miss him so much." His tears made my nose sting too. Annie stood beside me, watching me with a chilly expression. The cold night wind blew away my lingering sadness. Maybe Mike's words had an effect. Annie unusually came home tonight. As soon as I got home, I went straight into the study and never came out. I tossed and turned in bed until 3, still unable to sleep. I decided to get up, toss on a robe, grabbed a bottle of champagne, and quietly slipped into the media room. Annie, look at the camera. Come on, don't be so serious. Give us a smile. Annie, you got drunk last night and said you loved me the most in the world. Do you still mean it? Ahem. Everyone please note, this woman is Annie, and she's putting together a 1,000-piece puzzle. Why? In the video, Annie, looking sharp and handsome, was sitting cross-legged amidst a pile of messy puzzle pieces. With a good-natured look at the camera, she curled her lips into a helpless smile and said, "Because Calvin likes it." I echoed the words in a whisper, following the voice from the video. The door to the media room opened. The next second, the sofa dipped as Annie sat next to me. The video was still playing. Our sweet moments recorded in the past now seemed ironic and cutting. I turned my eyes away, ready to get up, but my wrist was caught in a firm grip. Annie's hand was dry and cold, wrapping around me like a snake. She pulled me down, and I lost my balance, falling heavily onto the couch. Annie climbed on top of me, her breath close to my ear. In the video, my innocent and playful voice said, "Annie, you promise not to bully me anymore, or I'll cry." Annie heard it too. Her lips curled as she slowly and ruthlessly hooked a finger into my collar. "Calvin, why aren't you crying now? Are you happy like this?" Annie's words hit like a brutal slap. "Annie." Panic seized me, and I shouted, "Look, it's me, Calvin, Calvin." She whispered my name, her eyes roaming my face, breath quickening. Kiss after kiss landed on my face like a storm. The forgotten video automatically switched to the next segment. Then, after a moment of darkness, the room was flooded with light again. "Gary, happy birthday. Make a wish." The world suddenly paused. Annie froze, one hand clutching my neck. It was like being doused in ice water. I shivered, teeth chattering, tasting the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. In the video, the birthday party was reaching its peak. Gary blew out the candles. I could hear cheers, laughter, Annie's tender voice calling his name, slipping a ring on his finger. Warm tears traced down the fine lines of my eyes, disappearing into my hair. I took a slow breath, pulled away, and pushed Annie. She seemed to turn to stone. Only her eyes moved slightly, unfocused, watching me. My temples throbbed painfully. Grimacing, some force surged within me. I curled up my legs and took a solid kick. Annie grunted in pain, rolling off me. I sprung up, not caring that I stubbed my toe on the table, limping to the door. Before leaving, I cast one last look back. Annie sat slumped on the carpet, head down. She was enveloped in a cloud of deep pain and self-loathing. It was as if she couldn't face what had just happened, or the brief moment of tenderness she felt towards me. After that night in the media room, about a month went by before I saw Annie again. Well, not exactly. I still saw her daily on entertainment news. Out on a yacht trip with actor A, having a candlelit dinner with actor B, investing big money in actor C's new show. Speculation began about how our marital breakdown would affect the company's stock price. Annie's mom finally couldn't sit still and called, asking me to go back to the family home. Not checking the lunar calendar, my car got scratched at an intersection. I left the driver to deal with it and stood by the road, wondering how to get back. Before I could figure it out, a black Cayenne pulled up next to me. The window rolled down to reveal a familiar face. Calvin, Tina. Seeing an old friend after so long, I was a bit excited. Back in college, Tina and I were both in student government, so we knew each other well. This was the first time we'd met since graduation. Tina happily offered me a ride. Talking with her felt refreshingly easy and pleasant. So when she parked outside the garage, I wasn't in a hurry to get out. Tina mentioned going back to our college recently. I leaned in to peek at the photos on her phone. Just as I did, a loud bang shook the car. Unprepared, I was slammed forward, hitting the dashboard. I straightened, ignoring the pain, and met a pair of indifferent eyes in the rearview mirror. Annie's car was parked behind us. She sat inside, who knows how long she had been watching. Seeing Tina and me get out of the car, she casually opened her door. Her gaze was quite playful, like a snake ready to strike with venom. After a moment, she seemed to chuckle softly and, with a lazy drawl, mocked, "Your new partner? What a poor choice. Feeling lonely?" Blood rushed to my head, ears buzzing. I couldn't hold back. Trembling lips spit out, "Annie, don't think I'm like you. I'm not as vile as you are." Annie seemed to hear a joke. "Even if I am vile, I haven't brought anyone home in a hurry." "Calvin, who is this?" Tina stood aside, her gaze shifting between Annie and me. The word wife was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't say it. I remembered a time when Annie's friend called me at 2 a.m., saying she was too drunk from socializing. Rushing to the club, Annie was there, sober as ever, sitting on the couch. A childhood friend jokingly said to her, "Your hubby really cares about you. It's so late, and he just ran over here without saying a word when he heard you were drunk." The winter night air was sharp, cutting into my lungs like a knife with every breath. I stood there, feeling awkward, in my pajamas with just a thick coat thrown over. Annie, clearly annoyed by the mention of hubby, slammed her glass on the table, causing the drink to splash everywhere. "What hubby? Who's calling him that? Who even invited him here?" Everyone around looked at each other in confusion, while Annie brushed imaginary dust off her pants and left a disdainful remark before leaving. I later heard that Annie's friendship with that childhood friend fell apart, and they never spoke again. That's when I understood something clearly. Annie refused to acknowledge my status as her partner in front of others and didn't allow me to take on that role either. Before I could say anything, I heard a cold laugh. Annie coldly told Tina to get lost and brushed past us. The atmosphere in the living room was tense. Annie's mom and Annie sat in silence, neither looking particularly happy. When Annie's mom noticed me, she forced a smile and invited me to sit next to her. The wife of the head of Jiang Capital planned a charity gala and invited both of us to attend. Annie scoffed, "All the showboating, is it really necessary?" Annie's mom sighed deeply, as if exhausted. "I know you still think about him and blame me for breaking you two up. But what did Calvin ever do?" I didn't expect her to bring this up so suddenly, so I instinctively looked at Annie. She seemed surprised for a moment before she stood up with a stern look and loosened her collar, muttering, "Don't mention him to me." Annie was truly angry. It was rare to see her, usually calm and collected, explode like this. After venting, she stormed out, leaving her mother in tears. "Calvin, what happened to Annie? What sort of spell did Gary cast on her?" I couldn't answer her question. Gary, the ever-present figure in Annie's life that I can never overcome or even mention, is someone she could never forget. He remains the impossible dream between us. When I was 18, I invited some friends over to celebrate getting into college. My brother had some time off coincidentally and joined the party. On that same day, Annie happened to return. Hearing she was back, I scrambled to grab my acceptance letter from my drawer and rushed downstairs, eager to show off. After searching around, I found her in the garden, crouching with someone dressed in light green. They were quietly comforting a stray cat that was scared and trembling. Surrounded by vibrant roses and lush greenery, they seemed to exist in their own world, where no one else could intrude. I was out of breath, sweaty and flushed, clutching my acceptance letter with a sense of defeat. That's how Annie first met Gary. What could have been a beautiful love story was fiercely opposed by Annie's mom. Annie moved out, rejecting her role in the family business, and openly resisted her parents at a family gathering, vowing to never give up on Gary before leaving. I felt like a faceless bystander in their explosive love affair. Even in my naive fantasies, Annie was always the leading lady. But her rebellion didn't lead to any happy ending. I'm not sure what Annie's mom said to Gary, but shortly after, he left Annie and went abroad for studies. Annie was in a slump for a while. She locked herself in the apartment they shared, drinking heavily every day. She was found by the cleaning lady after having collapsed from a stomach bleed, who thankfully called an ambulance in time. When I visited her in the hospital, she was asleep. She looked frail, almost like a ghost. with her hospital gown draped loosely over her. I'd never seen her like this, and I felt lost, just staring at her for who knows how long. Eventually, she opened her eyes and, realizing it was just me, disappointment clouded her once bright gaze. I didn't know how to comfort her, so I playfully warned her not to upset her mom again. After she was discharged, she moved back home. No one mentioned Gary again. Their passionate romance was like a bubble that easily drifted away. Later, when Annie's father passed, the business nearly fell apart. Annie spent her days caught between dealing with shareholders and distant relatives, exhausted by it all. All I could do was ensure she ate regularly and accompany her to difficult social events. Once everything settled, she unexpectedly proposed to me, saying I was there through her toughest times and thanking me for pulling her from the depths of despair. She added that her mother hoped to see us together. Finally, she asked if I was willing to accept her. Of course, I was willing. From the time my parents died when I was 16, and I started living with her, Annie had always been my secret love. After getting together, there were happy days too. Though we were busy, she always found time for us to go on dates, dine together, take walks by the waterfront, see movies or attend plays. We were like a typical happy couple. In my most content moments, I almost believed that Annie loved me. By the time I got home, the sky was dark, and the room was unlit and hazy. Gary had been on my mind, leaving me feeling restless and weighed down. I lazily sank into the couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. About half an hour ago, a popular male celebrity tweeted, "Someone just sent me this, the mango mousse is insanely good." The picture showed a full afternoon tea spread with exquisite desserts and a prominent logo. Whether intentional or not, a silver fork and knife by a bone china plate reflected a simple ring. It was a custom ring by a niche Swedish designer, one of a kind. The other ring is on my hand. Fans are guessing in the comments. Who is this someone? Is there something going on? Isn't that a private afternoon tea from the hotel he belongs to? It's not even available for purchase. He mentioned wanting to eat this recently, and now he's got it. Could someone be Annie? The celebrity liked this particular comment. I don't want to guess whether that ring belongs to Annie or not. I also don't want to wonder what she was feeling or what made her take off the ring. I just suddenly feel tired. I open my chat with Annie. Our last conversation was 3 months ago. After tweaking a simple sentence over and over, finally, using all my strength, I hit send. "Annie, let's get a divorce. What's your next move?" 8 arrows held a pair of brooches up to my chest. The message I sent to Annie disappeared like a stone in the sea, with no response. I sigh and try to perk up. She'll be at the charity gala too. I'll talk to her then. 8 arrows pouted. When he heard about my divorce plans with Annie, he volunteered to be my informant. But every time I rushed to her office, her assistant politely blocked me. Because of that, 8 arrows often helped venting my frustration towards Annie. Let's not talk about that. How did you get caught by the paparazzi the other day? Honestly, it was just a misunderstanding. Tina invited me to a school reunion a few days ago. When it ended, I reached out to help her when she almost missed a step, and just then a paparazzo took a picture. They even gave it a super dramatic headline. Calvin caught cheating late at night, divorce imminent. 8 arrows laughed, covering his mouth. Tina seems nice to me. Nice or not doesn't matter to me. One Annie is already enough of a mess. Did you pick a dress for the gala? 8 arrows shifted the topic. Try on the one I got, and I'll give you some advice. The dress was a gift from Annie's mom, a satin backless gown. 8 arrows' eyes gleamed as he pushed me into the dressing room without ado, waiting outside. The satin was cool as water, and suddenly, a pair of dry hands held my shoulders. A familiar, warm, woody fragrance filled my nose. I turned around and looked straight at Annie. "Why are you back?" "What? I'm not allowed back. You hiding someone here?" Annie's grip tightened slightly, a small hurt as my scalp was pulled. Maybe before, I would have felt heartbroken or angry over these words and argued with her. But now I calmly spoke. "Since you're here, I'll say it again. Annie, let's divorce." Annie seemed to ignore what I said. Her head was still down, moving her hands. When we got married, you said the marriage was a punishment for me. It's been 2 years. Isn't that enough for you? The ends of my hair were wound around her hand, and she tugged a bit. I had to lift my head and meet her puzzled eyes. So you're eager, huh? Found someone new? What's her name? Tina, yeah? I bit my lip. She has nothing to do with this. Nothing to do? Annie suddenly sneered. Nothing to do, yet after seeing her you want a divorce? Nothing to do, yet you leave a bar late at night with her? Nothing to do, yet you're so close? Then what do you call something? Kissing? Sleeping together? Annie's hand pressed against my back. Each sentence pulled me closer to her. By the end, I was practically pressed against her. Couldn't take it anymore. I pushed her away hard. Calm now? Can we talk, or do you need a slap to wake up? Annie was flabbergasted by the push. She grabbed hold tighter. I thought for a moment, then said slowly, Annie, no matter what you think, when it comes to Gary, I have a clear conscience. He asked me out to tell me something, that's all. Don't mention him. Annie seemed to snap back to reality, yelling quietly, You don't deserve to. Shortly after Annie proposed to me, Gary came back to the country. I don't know if Gary was the one in Annie's heart, but I did accidentally see them having dinner together. More than once. Back then, I loved Annie deeply, loved her so much I was scared. So, I did the one thing I regret most in life. I went to see Annie's mom. Annie's mom pulled some strings, and Gary's job offers were all suddenly off the table. Maybe he knew I was behind it. One day, Gary messaged me, saying he had something to tell me and set up a meeting. On my way there, his car collided head-on with an out-of-control, red-light running truck. He died on the spot. Annie blamed it all on me and her mother. To her, her mom was the one who broke them apart. And as for me, I was just as ruthless to marry her. No matter how I explained it was just an accident, she refused to believe. Even suspected the crash was engineered by me and her mom. She did a lot of crazy things, giving everyone the impression she loved Gary deeply. Everyone assumed she should hate me, and the wedding was probably off. But Annie locked herself in our marital home for a week, and when she came out, she said everything was back on track. I thought she finally came around, foolishly dreaming we had a lifetime to get past it all. But at the wedding, when we exchanged rings, Annie suddenly leaned in and whispered a sentence. Calvin, now you pay the price, enjoy your punishment. She sees our marriage as punishment for me. I've been trapped in her hatred for 2 years. I gently pressed a hand against Annie's chest, trying to push her away. Calvin, are you in there? Ba Huang's voice suddenly broke the silence from behind a door. He twisted the doorknob, seemingly about to come in. Annie raised an eyebrow, one hand gripping my waist, while the other held my wrists, pinning them against the wall. She leaned in, her warmth radiating through the fabric. As Ba Huang knocked with confusion and urgency, Annie bit my earlobe and whispered breathily, Calvin, there's something you seem to have mistaken. Her eyes were cruel as she continued. You need to repay Gary and me with your happiness. Didn't you want to marry me? Didn't you like me? You've got your wish, so don't let me hear you talk about divorce again. Don't you get it? When things end between us isn't for you to decide. Maybe she said other things. I can't remember. In my last moment of consciousness, I thought, such a shame. This beautiful dress is ruined. In a foggy state, I seemed to see 16-year-old Calvin. He was alone, hiding under a flower stand, crying. The moon hung high, casting a pale white across everything. Why are you crying? A voice said softly with a hint of laughter. A cool can of beer was pressed against the side of my face. That was my first time meeting Annie. Before 16, life was happy. Loving parents, friendly classmates. My biggest worry was exams or a pimple on my forehead. The upheaval happened overnight. That year, a major fire broke out in City A. A store in a mall was illegally renovated. A short circuit set the wiring ablaze. Amidst thick smoke, people panicked and lost their way. The fire caused 7 deaths from smoke inhalation. My parents were on that list. The news came as I was eagerly waiting for them to come home. Earlier that morning, I casually mentioned to my mom wanting some snacks from the mall's basement. She laughed and promised I'd have them for dinner. That was the first time they broke a promise to me. During that time, I was restless and lost, like a startled bird. Relatives avoided me like the plague, fearing I'd become a burden. Annie's mother came into my life when I was at my breaking point. She said she was my mom's best friend. They had promised to have each other's backs for life. But as they each got married, they drifted apart, until she saw the obituaries on the news. Annie's mother took me into her family, treating me like her own. She always wanted a daughter because her son was a handful. That little rascal was traveling abroad. When you meet him, she warned, keep your distance. He's nothing but trouble. I took a few seconds to connect the bright person before me with the troublemaker Annie's mom described. I didn't speak for a while, but Annie pulled open a beer can and handed it to me. You're the one my mom called her poor little thing, right? Why are you crying alone? Did my mom not treat you well, or did someone bully you? I blushed, quietly denying, no, Auntie's very nice, and no one's bullying me. But sometimes, I'd miss home, miss my parents. I'd wonder if, had I not craved those snacks that day, if it would have been different. Was I somehow responsible for their deaths? I drank a bit that night. Maybe it was the alcohol or the bright moon, or the deep night, or the fragrant flowers, or maybe Annie's gentle gaze. I sat beneath the trellis, sobbing uncontrollably. Annie was flustered, her hands awkwardly unsure of where to rest, ultimately patting my shoulder soothingly. She let me cry until her shoulder was soaked. I don't know how long I cried. Eventually, Annie firmly held my shoulders, looking into my eyes and telling me seriously, Calvin, it wasn't your fault. The accident wasn't your doing. Don't blame yourself, don't trap yourself. Do you think your parents would want you to be in pain and self-blame every day? Calvin, move on, you have your life to live. Felt like I slept a long, long time. I kept thinking I heard arguing near me. Warm hands brushed my forehead. Mom, it hurts. Tears slipped from the corners of my eyes. I murmured. When I woke, it felt like every part of me was in agony. Ba Huang came in with a glass of water, overjoyed. You're finally awake. Memories I'd tried hard to forget slowly came flooding back. Ba Huang's eyes were red. You slept through 2 whole days and nights. You scared the life out of me. He struggled to help me sit up, soothing me like a child. Have some water, I added honey. The sweet. The cup was right by my lips. I just had to tilt my head to drink. But a sense of powerlessness filled me entirely. It felt like a cocoon had wrapped around me, paralyzing me, suffocating even my emotions. Calvin, don't scare me. Ba Huang's voice trembled, on the verge of tears. Don't cry. I wanted to console him, open my mouth, but nothing came out. I can't remember when he left. The room curtains stayed drawn, thick dark green velvet, keeping all light at bay. Being in bed felt like clinging to a life raft in a storm, grounding me. I floated in and out of sleep until I felt something warm nuzzle my palm. It took effort to open my eyes. There was a tiny ginger ball of fluff by my hand. The fur ball nudged into my palm and raised its head with a baby's soft meow. A cat? Instinctively, I reached out to pet the kitten's soft, fluffy back. When Annie and I moved into this marital home, I had thought about getting a cat. But Annie said she didn't like cats, and so it never happened. In the corner of the room, a shadow stepped forward. Annie looked weary. Her usual upright posture was now slightly slumped. Calvin, her voice was heavy with exhaustion. I was wrong about that thing. Mom already scolded me for it. The little kitten purred contentedly under my hand. Annie's gaze also landed on the kitten. Weren't you the one who thought our home was too quiet and wanted a cat? This kitty has a great personality and is super clingy. Consider it my apology to you. Annie's voice got lighter. Your trick actually worked. You even fooled me. She thought I'd been pretending to be sick all those days lying in bed. What else do you want? Why don't you just say it all at once and I'll grant it? But don't stay in bed anymore. It's time to stop. I looked at Annie seriously, the 18-year-old, with a clear embrace of nature, who comforted me and went out of her way to make me happy. The 26 or 27-year-old, gentle and tolerant, filled with love for me, reading to help me sleep, walking and daydreaming with me, watching the sunrise over the sea of clouds, wasting time together but never feeling bored, whose gaze towards me would make us both burst into laughter. That was my Annie, but not the person standing here now. What's wrong? Can't decide? Annie raised an eyebrow. You sure have a big appetite. My voice, unused for so long, sounded raspy like a broken record when I finally spoke. Divorce. I tried my best to make those two words clear and precise. Annie's face darkened, and after a while, she forced out, anything but that. That's all I want. Calvin, are you playing hard to get? I've told you, you don't have the right to pull the plug. She stormed out, slamming the door. The kitten stayed. A 6-month-old British Shorthair, fluffy, staring with innocent big eyes as it frolicked around the house. I named it Mango. Gary helped me set up a room for it. Watching the kitten playing on the cat tree, I suddenly said to Gary, "Take me to see Mike." Annie never let me near the cemetery. Calvin, why wasn't it you who died? Is it because you're the jinx? You killed your parents and now Mike too. Who will you kill next? That's what she said to me on the day Mike was buried. Every single word, her expressions, her tone, I remembered them all. If it weren't for Gary crying and telling me it wasn't my fault, he didn't blame me, I might not have been able to hold on. Mike was handsome, his memorial picture gentle, smiling warmly. His grave was noticeably well kept. As I bowed, I caught sight of a mango mousse. Standing up, I looked at Mike's carefree face. I couldn't help but wonder. That day, when you asked me to meet, what did you really want to say? Mike, if I'd known how things with Annie would end up, I would have handed her over to you early on. Before leaving the cemetery, I slipped off the ring I'd always worn and tossed it into the nearest trash can. Mike drove me back home. Before I got out, he anxiously said, "Calvin, are you really okay? You seem different lately. Even when my brother had his accident, you were emotional, almost depressed. But it wasn't like this." Mike didn't give me a chance to speak, continuing, "Back then, it seemed like you still had hope, still had life. But now, I don't feel that in you." Mike looked troubled. I didn't expect him to say that. I hung my head, slowly rubbing the faint mark on my ring finger. I felt a bit sad. I'll find that Calvin again. Before coming, I hadn't expected to run into Annie here. Her gaze when she looked at me was furious, almost burning me to ash. "You went to the cemetery? Didn't I tell you not to go near there?" My long numb heart couldn't help but ache slightly. I took a deep breath, looking her in the eye, and said, "I went to see Gary. And what right do you have to stop me? As Gary's widow?" Annie looked shocked for a moment, staring heavily at me. I walked past her, not feeling apologetic. "I won't go again. Don't worry." My wrist was grabbed hard. Annie held my hand, her eyes scanning over it. After a moment, she asked, "Where's your ring?" "Left it at home." Annie frowned, seemingly unhappy with my answer. "You're not wearing a ring either, are you?" I felt it was ironic. Her ring finger was just as bare. What right did she have to question me? Annie paused. Her grip on me relaxed a little, as if she was going to say something. I took the chance to pull away, past her, and left without looking back. After searching around, I found Annie's mother in the guest room. She was leaning against the headboard, flipping through an album. I walked over slowly and sat beside her. This was the room I used to stay in. Everything inside was just as it had been before I moved out. Sitting quietly, I turned the pages with Annie's mother until she finally spoke slowly. "You came to me about Annie, I suppose." I nodded. "I want to divorce Annie. With Annie and you, I can't intervene. She's always resented me for what happened with Gary." The more I said, the more she opposed me. "I shouldn't have insisted on her marrying you. I thought since she had feelings for you, she'd treat you well once you were married, and I wouldn't let your mom down." Annie's mother sighed, her fingers stroking a photo of her and my mom, both in school uniforms, laughing freely under the trees. "If your mom knew my troublesome daughter bullied her precious son like this, she'd come and settle accounts with me." My eyes stung with tears welling up that I couldn't hold back. I closed my eyes, suppressing the lump in my throat. "Auntie, you've been so good to me, taking such good care of me. But Annie and we just don't fit together. Annie's mother shook her head. It's Annie who's wronging you. Annie probably won't sign the papers easily. Annie's mother sighed deeply and gazed at me with affection. Calvin, would you be interested in studying abroad for a while? You both need time to cool off. Mango was gone. Annie realized this fact a month later. After wrapping up an international acquisition, she rushed back home, leaving behind partners waiting for a celebration dinner. Sitting in the car with her eyes closed, she had a little mango-flavored cake beside her. She remembered Calvin loved desserts. When he first came around, he'd hide and cry, but give him a little cake and he'd cheer up. In her mind, Calvin smiled shyly at her. But then, in a flash, the laughter faded, turning into sad sobs, just like the last time in the closet. She wasn't sure what was up with her, but after seeing the news, Calvin standing so close to that woman, she felt a burning anger rising inside. She had come home ready to confront him, but seeing him standing there, head low, his handsome figure wrapped in silky fabric, that fire became a small hook pulling her forward. Calvin's panic and resistance didn't escape her notice. He said he wanted a divorce, with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. Suddenly, she was overwhelmed with unspeakable anger and fear, burning her logic away. When she came to, Calvin didn't even have tears left. He seemed drained of life, numbly enduring everything, eyes staring at her but not really seeing her. Annie's mom and Mike scolded her harshly, telling her she'd regret it soon. She didn't care. Calvin loved her. She was sure of it. A month, Annie thought, should be enough for him to cool off. After all, Calvin always tolerated and forgave her endlessly. But something was different this time. The living room was dark and silent, filling all the space. She wandered room to room like a ghost, trying to find any sign that Calvin was still around. Nothing. Then her eye caught something on the kitchen counter. A divorce agreement, his name signed on the last page. Mike parked and got out, carrying a pet carrier. She took a step and saw a shadow pass behind the car. Annie urgently stopped Mike, her eyes darting to the kitten, and she asked, "Where's Calvin?" The assistant only found out he went to London. After that, he just disappeared. Annie knew it was likely her mom was involved. Her mom said nothing to all her hints, just sighed eventually, telling her to let go. Why should she? Calvin indirectly caused Gary's death. He owed a lifetime of atonement, so why should she let go? Mike saw her and rolled his eyes. "Calvin?" she asked again, keeping her patience. "How would I know?" Mike said, brushing past her. Annie blocked him. "He handed you the kitten. What does it mean? Where is he?" Mike looked her up and down, pity flashing in his eyes. Then he shook his head with a mocking laugh. "Annie, you confuse me. Now that Calvin's gone, you're worried. But when he was here, you didn't treat him right. You never cared, never came home. Even when you did, you'd bring other men around. Frequent scandals, treating his dignity and love like they're trash. Now that he's gone, why do you want to find him? Is it time for another show of your true feelings?" Annie's expression shifted, her voice cold and bitter. "Mike, it's none of your business what happens between him and me." The kitten meowed uneasily in the carrier. Mike seemed tired, setting it down. As he rubbed his sore hands, his tone became more sarcastic. "So, can I talk about Gary then? Recently, when I packed up at home, I found his journal. I read it. He came back because he couldn't let go of you. He took your mom's deal and left, but regretted it every day. He still had feelings, thought you did too, so came back to apologize and try for your mom's acceptance. But he didn't expect you to be engaged to Calvin, or that you'd actually fall for Calvin. He went to Calvin to say it was over between you two, that he'd leave so you could be happy together, to put Calvin's mind at ease. But you, Annie, do you even know who you love? Understand your own heart? You can't accept being so heartless, moving on so easily. Do you blame Calvin for everything so you can feel like you're not the jerk here? Shut up." Annie replied frantically. "Stop it. You don't understand anything." Mike picked up the carrier again, speaking calmly. "No, I don't. I just know my brother had to leave, crying over you for so long. And then Calvin cried for ages too, also because of you. And you? You say you can't let go of Calvin while you tell Calvin you can't forget my brother. You don't want to hurt anyone. But now you've lost them both. Calvin leaving you was the best decision he ever made. If you really cared for him, you'd leave him alone and stop performing your cheap sentimentality. Annie stood still for a long time. She thought about when Gary returned and asked her to dinner. She went. During the meal, Gary cried, saying he couldn't forget her. In that moment, she felt something. But when she was about to speak, she caught sight of Calvin. He was standing outside the door, thinking he was hidden. But she could see his pale face and tears ready to fall. That was the moment she realized she'd truly moved on from Gary. But then Gary had an accident. Their last meeting, he cried, asking why she was so heartless, why he was the only one stuck in their emotional mess. It was those words that made her feel guilty and anxious with Calvin. She thought of Gary's tears and Calvin's tears too. In the end, I have to admit, Mike was right. She didn't manage to keep anyone. Overall, my time studying abroad was pretty uneventful. That is, if you ignore Annie, who's been following me around like a shadow. She seemed to appear out of nowhere one day. She wouldn't come up to me, just stood at a distance watching. At school, she'd wait at the gate. When I went back to the apartment, she'd follow, not too close, not too far, until I was inside. If my company's stock prices weren't stable, I'd really suspect Annie's got so much free time because she's driven the company into bankruptcy. Every day there were fresh flowers on the steps in front of the house. At one point, different kinds of meal boxes and desserts started to show up too. But since she never showed her face, I pretended she didn't exist. I gave the food to neighbors and classmates. The flowers I handed to a professor, who loved them and ended up recommending me for an internship at a famous fashion group. The internship was busy and a bit tedious, but I enjoyed it. One day after work, as I was heading back to my apartment, the quiet streets suddenly erupted into chaos. Panic screams and cries filled the air. Out of nowhere, a woman with a knife appeared. She looked wild, swinging the blade around, and blood was dripping from the tip. She saw me. Her eyes locked on me like a predator. Run, was my brain's first command. I turned around stiffly. My legs felt like lead, but I sprinted. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her running straight at me, brandishing the knife. The wind whooshed by my ears, accompanied by heavy footsteps and a weapon slicing through the air. Ah! I yelped. Out of nowhere, someone rushed up and shielded me. I looked, confused, right into Annie's eyes. Annie was hurt, though they subdued the attacker quickly. Annie got slashed on her back and elbow during the struggle. The hospital patched her up. Thanks for today, I said, standing up. I'll head home if nothing's wrong. Annie gave a wry smile. You're really heartless. She hesitated and added, I don't feel comfortable letting you go back alone. Let me take you home. No need, I refused. You should rest up. Calvin, Annie said, sounding frustrated. Why do you keep pushing me away? Annie, what do you want? I'm tired. Annie, her hand bandaged, looked both desolate and fragile. She fumbled a small black velvet box from her pocket. Awkwardly. Don't lose it again. She opened the box to reveal the ring I had tossed away at Gary's grave. Somehow, she knew where it was and went through the trouble to retrieve it. I turned away, not meeting her gaze. Annie, why are you here? I don't get most of what you do. I thought I'd started healing from the painful past, but it still hurts to talk about it. You said you wanted to get engaged. I didn't get how you could let go of Gary, but I was happy. I used to really like you, so I convinced myself to believe that you liked me too. But then Gary came back, you got back with him, yet you still dated me. I wasn't sure what you were thinking. Still, I told myself to accept it all, and if you really wanted to be with Gary, I'd bless that. After Gary's accident, you blamed me for everything. You said you hated me, yet you wanted to marry me. You did, but only for revenge. You won't let me go even now. What did I do wrong, Annie? Tell me. Annie trembled. Her hand with the ring dropped weakly. Pain crossed her face. Being with you suffocates me every second. Annie, let's just let each other go. It's time for me to find my own life. I dodged around her and walked away without looking back. From that day on, It seemed like Annie did vanish from my life. Things settled back to normal. Mike came to visit me and invited me to ski in St. Moritz. I happily agreed. St. Moritz, nestled among snowy peaks, looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. The stunning snow scenes and bright mountains cleared away the winter gloom. I suited up in ski gear and tried out some moves with the coach's help. I must have fallen a dozen times, a bit exhausted. A ski stopped right in front of me, pulling me up before the coach could. I pressed my lips together, glancing at the fully kitted-out Annie. She seemed nervous, quickly letting go once I was steady, saying, "I didn't follow you here on purpose." After a pause, she continued, "You once said you wanted to ski with me. Things got so bad between us that we never did." I remember her once posting skiing with a guy that caused quite the stir. Whether Annie thought about it, she fell silent before quietly asking, "One last time, ski with me once, and then can you let me go?" Her eyes were behind ski goggles, but it felt like she looked deeply at me. Just as my patience was running out, she nodded. Annie was indeed a patient and skilled ski instructor. Under her guidance, I learned some basic moves. Before we knew it, we had skied way off course. The surroundings were silent, every inch covered in fresh, untouched snow. I started to panic. We should head back. Annie exhaled, a cloud of breath visible in the cold air as she looked around with a rare serious expression. "Stay with me." She handed me one end of her ski pole, turned, and trudged ahead. We walked a bit, seemingly without direction. The snow got deeper, and there was a subtle tremor beneath us. "Annie, do you feel that? The ground is moving." "Oh no." She suddenly spun around, swiftly took the backpack off my shoulders, gave a hard shove, and shouted, "Run." I stumbled a bit from the push and instinctively ran a few steps away. In a flash, the spot where we had been standing began to collapse. A massive chunk of snow slid down with destructive force, engulfing Annie in an instant. She was buried in the snow, rolled over several times with the avalanche, and just like that, she was gone. It all happened in a few heartbeats. The valley returned to silence, with the once calm snowy ground now completely ravaged. Annie. But I couldn't see her anywhere, just endless snow in front of me. Trembling, I contacted the person in charge at the ski resort. I was thankful that the pack Annie threw off was just a regular gear bag. The beacon and probe were in a small bag she was carrying. At first, the receiver didn't pick up any signals. It's been almost 15 minutes since Annie got buried. The longer someone is buried, the harder it is to rescue them and the slimmer the chances of survival. Luckily, going downhill along the avalanche's path, we finally got a faint signal. After a lot of struggle, we managed to locate where Annie might be buried. Even though I was exhausted, I forced myself to pull out the probe and snow shovel. If fate doesn't want us together, and if I save you this time, you owe me your life. Just listen to fate and let us both go. The shovel suddenly hit something solid. Through the snow, a hint of black was visible. Feeling invigorated but too weak to stand, I knelt in the snow and kept digging. Again and again. I don't know how much time passed. Finally, I saw Annie beneath the snow. She was still conscious, and slowly said, "Calvin, what should I do? Now I really don't want to let go of you. If you don't want to be buried here by me, shut up. If you bury me here, you'll always remember me, and that's good too." I kept digging without stopping. "Do you want me to live with guilt all my life? Do you hate me so much that you won't even let me have a peaceful life? I tell you, even if you die here today, I won't shed a tear for you. I've cried all my tears when you said I killed my mom and dad. And Gary too." Tears welled up, but with the wind, their warmth quickly faded, leaving an itchy, painful trace. "Annie, you know, when the snow took you away, I thought, if you die like this, it's what you deserve, not my fault." Annie sighed, "It's not your fault." Her voice was so light, like a sigh, dissipating into the snow. "Sorry, Calvin. I shouldn't have said you were responsible for your parents' and Gary's deaths. It really had nothing to do with you. When Gary cried and asked me why I changed my heart, I thought I was unfair to him and would make it up to him somehow. But he suddenly died. I felt responsible, and I couldn't face the me who loved you, nor could I let you go. I drowned myself in distractions, hoping it would keep me from thinking about you, but I couldn't. When you said you wanted a divorce, I knew this time you were really hurt. Her voice got softer and softer, like snow melting in the sun. I'm sorry. Annie's mother rushed to St. Moritz overnight. Although help came quickly, Annie's spine had hit a protruding rock during her fall, and she was buried in deep snow for a long time. The doctor said, at best, she might stand up again unscathed. But his grave expression was not reassuring. The long journey took a toll on Annie's mother, making her seem much older suddenly. Seeing her swollen eyes, I had nothing to say. Annie had hurt me, but her mother had never wronged me. Now her daughter lies inside, possibly facing a future where she might never walk again. I couldn't just say sorry lightly, yet there wasn't much more I could say. Eventually, it was Annie's mother who broke the silence. Summoning her strength, she said calmly, as long as you're fine. Once Annie wakes, I'll take her back home. I nodded, agreeing. I knew my bond with Annie's mother ended there. Calvin, over here. Just out of the airport, I saw Mike standing by the road, waving and shouting my name. I picked up my suitcase and jogged over. He opened the trunk, muttering, 2 years, and you finally decided to come back home. Yeah, 2 years. 2 years ago, I left St. Moritz in a rush. Not long after, I received a package from back home. Inside was the divorce agreement Annie had signed. She never showed up throughout the divorce proceedings. I heard it was because her injuries hadn't healed, and she couldn't get out of bed. But she was generous, giving me multiple properties and even transferring 20% of her shares to me. After the divorce, I chose to continue my studies. Later, I stayed with a fashion group, working my way up from an intern to a PR director. This trip back was for a fashion exhibit. The venue was a private gallery designed by a globally renowned designer. On the opening day, the place was packed. A hesitant assistant approached, saying, "Someone insists on seeing you." I turned around. Even sitting in an electric wheelchair, Annie looked vibrant. She still wore that simple ring on her left hand. Noticing my gaze, she said apologetically, "Here I am again in front of you." I shrugged it off with a smile. "I can't exactly stop you from seeing an exhibition. You still don't forgive me." I thought seriously, "I'm not blaming you, so there's nothing to forgive. I just don't feel anything for you anymore. Can you understand that, Annie? I loved you, but that love has faded away. I hated you, but that hatred has dispersed too. To me, you're no different from countless others in this world. Just like you wouldn't hate a stranger or care about a tree." Annie's face went pale. I felt a bit sorry and added, "I don't know if you're living a good life now, but I'm doing well. So, maybe we don't need to see each other again, right?" After a while, she seemed to come back to reality. "I brought you a surprise." She gestured, and someone quickly brought over a pet carrier. The door opened, and the cat inside didn't look scared at all. It had big, round eyes and strutted out confidently. It circled around my leg, its golden fluffy tail brushing against my calf. "Mango?" I called out, not completely sure. Annie waved, and the kitten, with its tail up, ran towards her, lightly jumped onto her lap, and nestled in. Annie sighed a bit, saying, "I asked Mike to give it back to me. It's really not hard to care for. Do you know why it's named Mango?" I asked suddenly. For a second, Annie looked puzzled. "Because I hate mangoes the most. The day my parents had their accident, they were out buying mango yogurt for me. When Gary was with Annie, she once bought him a mango cake to celebrate his birthday. And then there was that girl. I've forgotten her name, but I still remember that mango mousse and the ring beside it. So I named the cat Annie brought Mango, to remind myself not to forget, not to be soft, not to look back. I didn't know any of this. If Annie's face was pale before, it was ghostly white now. I looked at her, calm and collected. But I remember. I can't forget. Whether you took a bullet or couldn't walk because you saved me, or you still have that wedding ring and are caring for the cat, you might have done a lot to try to win me back. But it doesn't work that way, Annie. Hurt is still hurt. I can't forget. Why can't you just quietly disappear from my world like you did those 2 years before?" As I finished speaking, Annie's eyes were red. Her hand instinctively squeezed the kitten's neck, which scratched her hard. Annie snapped out of it, let out a bitter laugh. I get it now. I won't show up again. You've said that a lot, I shrugged. But it doesn't matter, my attitude won't change. I won't be in the country too often, still I wish you the best. Say hi to Auntie for me. My assistant signaled at me from not far away. The media waiting for an interview stood nearby. I lifted my head and walked over to them, just like I had once stepped past my pain. I know from here on, whatever my life holds, I'll walk forward like this.